Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Waste Management, written by H. Dufort. Coda sat at his desk angrily with his paw, which made Trollocs' blood drain from his face. Crap. Here we go again. The Fleet Admiral looked very pissed. Torek looked down, his hands shaking, not even trying to keep his composure anymore. I know bloody well what happened on your ship, Captain Torek. Or should I say now, Ensign Torek. I have read the reports. My superiors have read the reports. Everyone has read the bloody reports. It's all over the news, and they're the laughing stock of the whole galaxy. Now for the last time, I want you to explain it to me in details without trying to gloss it over. You're not saving your rear. You're way beyond that. Torek slowly looked up, his eyes wet with fear secretions, and started telling his story for the 100th time. When we learned that a group of humans was to be embedded in our crew, we swiftly made our due diligence. No glossing over, interjected Coda, showing his upper fangs and growling more quietly. We sent our science team on a quest to find out as much information as possible on human needs and cohabitation challenges. But as you know, sir, the whole thing was rushed. We had very little time to adapt the ship systems and very little information to work with. Coda's gaze was as hard as a crystalline rock. Torek's whining made him angry. Torek paused for a few seconds, trying to catch his breath, but his lungs felt numb. He swallowed some saliva loudly, then continued. We sent human biological parameters to the team responsible for biological adaptation. We have a small team of xenobiologists. The whole thing was rushed. They came back with a list of standard recommendations. Humans are carbon-based, oxygen-dependent creatures who can live just fine within the ship's standardized habitat. They require just 20% oxygen for their gaseous exchanges, and they have very little tolerance for CO2. They can live with higher oxygen levels, so we left the atmospheric controls unchanged and added a little bit of water vapor to the... Coda's face twisted into a sardonic smile. You don't have to explain to me how to make a Baalbek cake. As the saying goes, tell me how you serve your guest, not how you put the icing on the cake. Food metaphors. Coda was beyond furious. Torek paused again to wipe some glistening droplets of fierce secretions away from his whiskers, a gesture indicating retreat from sight. In any normal setting, but no retreat was possible from Coda's gaze, so he swallowed his saliva and kept going. We adapted the cleaning room apparatus to add artificial waterfalls, showers, that the humans seemed to like very much, and we added the so-called swivel chairs in all the meeting rooms, 3D printed them from a model we found in the human culture repository called Walmart. Then it hit us. What hit you? Waste management. We have a dozen different species on board, and they all produce waste, of course. The Fori have a complex set of skin folds diffusing waste molecules into their environment, which is why they wear a scrub suit at all times when on board a Federation vessel. The Gnomes have hard shells covering their whole body, and their waste slowly accumulates in a neutral colloid solution, which they expel only once a year in a waste pouch. In fact, I don't think we've ever had the facility for humans. Focus on humans. So, yes, sir, humans. We had dozens of humans coming on board, and we started calculating their waste products and deciding on a management strategy. The standard waste elimination apparatus, which they call a flush toilet, would generate way too much volume. we devised a more efficient but still comfortable waste extraction apparatus. We also figured that they could just empty their bladder fluid into a dry funnel. Their waste fluid is not a big concern, and we discovered that we could extract useful nitrogen from it to boost vegetable production for our vegetarian crew.
Again, Torek, I don't care about the icing.
We, then discovered that the major challenge would be to handle the solid waste.
A challenge with the humans? You don't say,
Coda hissed, rolling his eyes and retracting his whiskers, making sure his body language was the very expression of contempt. Tarek sighed discreetly and continued. Humans produce quite a lot of solid waste, 10 times more waste than any other species we have on board, in fact. They seem to produce never-ending string of solid waste, packages, and they have to go quite often to the disposal unit. At least one per human cycle, we were told. Some humans can even use the time to read the news or play networked video games while sitting on the disposal unit, which is something nobody in their right mind would ever consider doing. You know how we, for instance, take waste disposal very seriously, so...
Don't they have any pride? This is appalling.
Some of them spend quite a lot of time doing that. One of the humans was even singing popular music at the times. Anyway, as the ship's adaptation went, we had to increase the number of waste disposal stations on the ship from 4 to 26, making sure the humans were never more than 20 beeps away from one, anywhere on the ship. And we had to completely redesign the cargo hold area to fit the much bigger waste material holding tank. This time, it was Coda who sighed.
Oh, keep going.
We thought we had everything right. The lighting had been adapted to please the human senses, since they have a quasi-nocturnal vision to tolerate less lighting than most species. The crew had been given the standardized nanovaccines against the other species' pathogens, and we had real-time translators set up in no time. Then, one week into our voyage, we, Tarek stopped and looked down, trying to find his words. One of our engineers came back to the bridge with a puzzling report. The waste tank pressure was higher than predicted, then ran some tests, but found that the solid matter level was within the normal range, considering all the parameters. But still, the pressure was climbing. Coda frowned, then pulled out his tablet, swiped a few times, and checked the report.
Yes, I have your engineer's report here. The pressure build-up was linear, and it had started on day 1, but your waste management engineers chose not to report it.
Tarek ignored Coda's comment and continued with his report. On day 20, the tank was only 10% full, according to waste level sensors, but pressure had reached critical levels. One of our engineers, Topek, suggested that the pressure sensor, which is a single sensor with no redundancy, might be faulty. We agreed to turn off the sensor and have the whole waste tank replaced at our next stop. Except that, we didn't make it that far.
The waste tank exploded. The waste tank bloody exploded, repeated Coda. And why is that so, Doric? Can you explain to me as if I'm a pup out of the X-sack?
We didn't know it at the time, but human solid waste is, active. Humans are a highly symbiotic species with a complex internal ecosystem. They literally are full of bacteria. They're walking cesspools.
Doric stopped, wondering if the last comment had been too harsh, but Coda let him continued.
When the tank ruptured, the whole cargo area and the lower decks were contaminated with the solid particles. Toxic methane gas flowed into the atmospheric control system, destroying the delicate gas exchange membranes. We nearly had to abandon ship, but then the whole crew managed to gather into the emergency chambers, where an autonomous life support system kept them alive until help arrived. We were then ferried to quarantine facility on Sirius 3, while the special team in hazmat suits decontaminated the ship.
Tell me, Torek, do you understand why exactly the tank ruptured? Do you know what you could have done to prevent this?
Torek opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. I know what happened. Human engineers explained to us that human solid waste is not only active, but it also acts as a bioreactor. I won't go into the technical details because, quite frankly, I'm not sure I understand everything. But there are complex biomechanical reactions resulting in emission of large amounts of methane gas, combined with other species' waste products which are rich in carbohydrates. The human waste bioreactor went into overdrive. This is what ruptured the waste tank on the ship. Now, what could we have done better? At the time, we had no idea, and I had not received the memo.
You had received the memo, Torek. You just didn't read it.
I had not grasped the memo's importance, sadly. We could have treated the active human waste with UV radiation, or we could have just cryo-freezed it, which seems to be the preferred approach now in Federation ships. Using a separate tank, we could have then transferred the waste products to a nearest human colony, where it would have been recycled as fertilizer.
So tell me, Torek, how did the humans manage to live for 5 days in the emergency chambers without any working waste management units at their disposal?
One of them was an engineer. He immediately started designing a small, simple waste containment unit, which was then 3D printed within the hour. The 12 humans used it for 5 days, and sometimes there was quite the lineup. Some made jokes about the learning process for their pups they call potty training. The crafty humans stored their waste into small bags with zippers, then they shoved it into a food freezer.
And what do they call this improvised waste management unit, Torek?
Yeah, a porta potty, sir.
End of story.
The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 patrons and channel members. Alithia, Barky, Budic Yol, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Onholtz, White Band 420, Lord Asrakal, Arcalian, and Oakfield.